नमामि धन्वन्तरिमादिदेवम् सुरासुरैर्वन्दितपादपद्मम् लोकैर्जरारुभय मृत्युनाशम् धातारमीशं विविधौषधीनाम्.
So namaste all the participants in this online virtual webinar. Chronic kidney disease, I used Sanskrit term Jeerna or Praruddha Vrika dosha. This is big challenge before medical science. Why? Because worldwide there are 697.5 million patients, which become 9.1% of whole population, are suffering with this problem. And if we consider India, then India we have around 229 patients per million population. Though here we have to remember that in India, statistics and documentation of patients related to these diseases is not that accurate. So this is just estimation, because so many patients, those are living in suburban or rural areas, they never visit the centers where there is facility of registration and documentation properly. But to have 229 patients per million population is also very big alarming sign to us. Another reason that why it is challenged, that if we see the ranking of the causes of death worldwide, kidney diseases had 27th place in 1990 and which reached to 18th place in 2010, and in 2017 it reached to 12th level. That means the death due to this problem is increasing every year. In India also, if we see the cause of death, so according to 2015 ranking, in India its position was even 8th. In worldwide it was 12th, but in India it is again bigger cause of death. That is, it is at the 8th position. Why we need Ayurveda for the management of such conditions, where in conventional science they have several advanced technologies and very sophisticated ways of treatment. The reason is that this is very harsh reality, that over 2 million people worldwide currently receiving treatment with dialysis or kidney transplant to stay alive. And this number only represents 10% of people who actually need treatment to live. And of these 2 million who receive treatment, the majority are treated in only 5 countries, which are America, Japan, Germany, Brazil, and Italy. And these 5 countries represent only 12% of the world population. Only 20% are treated in about 100 developing countries that make over 50% of the world population. So the facility of modern conventional treatment in the form of dialysis or kidney transplant is not accessible to a big part of the population of the world. And if we see in India, if we see our financial situations, economical realities, then according to government statistics, 27.5% population of our country is below poverty line. And nowadays, dialysis facilities are increased in our country, but still the dialysis cost per session is around 1,000 to 2,000 rupees per session. And if we see the cost of transplantation, even if we go to any charitable hospital, then also it will cost around 300,000 to 500,000 rupees. And then another expenditures, those continue for lifelong. Even after this much cost, there are several other issues related to transplant, and they are first, which is again very big ratio, is rejection. Then infections, because these patients have to be maintain the immunity problem with immunosuppressive drugs, and therefore they are always immune compromised. So they are always prone for infection. And from transplanted kidney, there is possibility of cancer transmission also. So even after this much expenditure, these issues are there. And therefore often Indian patients are very much hesitant to go for such type of treatment. Because of these difficulties, there is lot of exploitation by fakes and false claimers also. I often see in newspapers and even in social media claiming that we can stop dialysis, we can save kidneys without transplantation, etc., etc. Here we have to accept certain realities. And when we talk to the patient, we have to present some facts before him. So what are these facts which we have to disclose to the patient very honestly, and which we observed in our practice, that we can reduce the frequency of dialysis. We can also stop dialysis. This is also possible. Not possible, but in several patients, we have done this. And if patient has not yet started RRT, that means dialysis or any other supportive treatment, then we can postpone the need of RRT. And we also observed that in several patients, survival, normal survival is possible without RRT. So these are certain facts which we have to keep in our mind and also to explain to the patient. How to approach to this disease or any other such disease? First question which comes to everybody's mind, is there any classically described disease entity which we can correlate with chronic kidney disease? Or is there any similar disease entity which we can compare with this? So, in Charak Samhita Chikitsa Sthan 20th chapter, there is one condition in which it is mentioned that when provoked vata, blocking Purishvaha, Svedvaha, Mutravaha, and Udakvaha srotas, carrying the accumulated doshas from the kosta of an already diseased person, means it is not individual condition, but it is secondary, it is not primary condition. It is clear there that in already diseased person, Ussanna doshasya. So a person who is already diseased, in that, if this happens, then this vata moves upward, then patient vomits forcefully, continuously, having color and smell similar to feces and urine, and associated with thirst, breathlessness, and hiccup. And it is also notified there that a person suffering with this dies soon. So in my opinion, this is a clear clinical picture of a uremic condition in uremic patient who has vomiting with uremic smell, thirst, breathlessness, and hiccup. And there it is clearly mentioned that it is incurable condition and fatal. And this also shows that at the time of Dhadwal, because this chapter is written by Dhadwal, so at the time of Dhadwal, there was no management of such condition. Because in Charak Samhita, even in first chapter and later on also at several locations, they have clearly mentioned that in this text, they have described only treatments only of the conditions those are curable. Asadhyanam Nasti Chinta, there is clearly mentioning everywhere. So it shows that when they have not described any treatment here, and this was considered a fatal condition, so in those days there was no treatment or management available. Now I often encounter with lot of futile vitanda on this topic. For example, people say that why do not you consider this any type of mutra ghata or mutra kasya? So friends, I could not correlate with any of such conditions. Mutra kasya and mutra ghata can be cause of this condition. They can be nidanarthaka rogas, but they are not comparable with this condition. Again, there is another thing which is also very necessary to mention here, that often people say that in Ayurveda there is no description of kidneys related to mutrotpatti, urine formation. Then why you consider kidneys? I say in Ayurveda, Aptopdesha is not only pramana. In Ayurveda, Pratyaksha and Anumana is also pramana. If patient has no kidney, then there will be no urine formation. Same time, we also, because in our hospital, we also treat the patients with ulcerative colitis. And sometimes patient comes with total resection of colon. And in them, urine formation is there, though there is no colon, no pakvashaya. So it means that we have not to ignore the role of kidney in urine formation or mutrotpatti. Then why Ayurveda says pakvashaya is the place of mutrotpatti? I think we have to decode this sentence or this description. This Samhita is mainly concentrated on therapeutic aspects. Their purpose was not to describe much anatomy and physiology. So in my view, when Ayurveda says pakvashe, correlated pakvashe with mutrotpatti, that is for therapeutic purpose. And that we have to use. That when mutrotpatti is not there from its original source, then we have to use pakvashaya to promote mutrotpatti or urine formation. And this we use in our treatment plan. There are also attempts to forcefully fit some diagnosis. This also we see. Here we have to remember one very important shloka from Siddhanta Nidanam, that we cannot expect every new disease, description of every new disease in ancient text. And therefore, in Siddhanta Nidanam, Ganna Sen has tried to explain modern diseases according to Ayurvedic principles. And in the first chapter itself, Ganna Senji have written that Purana Priviliyante Navina Pradur Asate. That means ancient diseases are disappearing and new diseases are coming up. So in that text, Ganna Senji have tried to explain those new diseases according to Ayurvedic principles, and the same thing we have to adopt in modern time whenever we encounter newer disease conditions. Of course, we have to explain and understand them according to Ayurvedic principles. So, Jirna or Pravadha Vrakka dosha, according to conventional science, is an irreversible deterioration in renal function, classically develops over a period of years. Now, if you see in my slide, after irreversible, I have put question mark. Why? Because it is from conventional medicine that they mention it as irreversible condition, but in several patients we have seen it reversible, and therefore I have put question mark here. Of course, we cannot say this disease is purely curable or sadhya type of disease, but we can say that it is from kashta sadhya to yapya and yapya to pratyakheya type of disease. In this disease, there is decline in glomerular filtration rate when it becomes less than 60 milliliter per minute. Then for more than 3 months continuously, then it is considered as Jirna Pravadha Vrakka dosha, chronic kidney disease. And when it becomes less than 15, then it is considered as ESRD, that is end stage renal disease. Here one interesting description I found in Rig Veda, and that also have encouraged us to treat this condition. In Rig Veda, there is one word Vrakka, and Sayan has explained this word Vrakka as Vyader Varjyati, that means averter of the disease. Actually, in Rig Veda, this word came for some medicinal plant. Surprisingly, there must be some medicinal plant in that period, maybe in modern period also, in which we are not aware. So there, I just read the English translation of that mantra, that let our medicines be averter of the diseases and uprising, which make us certainly disease-free and corpulent. So when Vrakka word, according to science, means averter of disease, so in the same sense, I consider Vrakka having capacity of self-healing. That means to avert the disease. Of course, this secret we have to explore. Vrakka has this capacity to heal itself, and that we have to explore. Now, how this develops, this is usual pathogenesis according to conventional science. Then, when there is any pathological changes in healthy kidney, just in beginning, first there is hyperfiltration due to that disease. There is minor damage in the kidney. But because of this hyperfiltration, the non-diseased nephrons have to compensate the work because there is overburden on the remaining nephrons. And this burden causes further damage in these healthy nephrons. And in this way, there is more and more progressive dysfunction, and ultimately that result into end-stage renal disease. Initially, there are biochemical abnormalities, and then gradually there is excretory, metabolic, and endocrinal deficiency in the kidney function. These are the common causes in India for this disease. You all know this, so I do not use your time in explaining this slide. Also, the causes according to conventional science, you all are aware. But now, how I understand these etiological factors and pathogenesis in Ayurveda, and according to that we plan the treatment, this I try to explain. So the etiological factors we can understand in following manner. First of all, Bija dosha. Then Vega dharana is also very important factor in modern time. Particularly the Vegas, those are related to Apana. On this point, I also want to highlight one my observation that there is a disease condition, essential hypertension. In conventional science, it is mentioned as primary hypertension. That means which does not have any known cause. But in my understanding, the suppression of urge of urination for long period may be the cause of this essential hypertension. How? Because when we hold urine for longer period, the capacity of stretching of bladder is limited. Naturally, the retained urine in the bladder goes up, moves up, and then when it reaches in the ureters and at the end in the kidneys, may cause temporary hydroureter and hydronephrosis. And that may activate renin-angiotensinogen system, and that may result into first temporary hypertension, and then because of long-term insulting of the system, then it becomes a permanent problem. So when we have the patients of essential hypertension, we have to explore this nidana also. Marma vighata, here we consider three main marmas. Vishmashana, food not taken according to rules of Ayurveda. Ahar Vidhi Vishesh Aitanani, those are described in Ayurveda. If we do not follow them and we consume the food without following them, then this may also result into such type of illnesses. Then diseases of Mutrava Srotas such as Mutrakrishra, Mutraghata, Ashmari, Arbuda, Granthi, Prameha, especially Madhumeha. Then Balabhransha. The Balabhransha, here I interpret Balabhransha as autoimmune condition. I have limitation of time, otherwise I would explain that why I consider Balabhransha as autoimmune condition. And related to that, again I consider AMA also as one of the factors for this problem. Jeerna Jora, here Jora is not only any febrile condition, but Jora in very broad sense I consider as any chronic emaciating illness. And last but not least, Deva. If we do not find any cause, explainable cause, then we have to consider Deva. According to our observation in the patients and on the basis of basic etiopathogenesis, we have to consider this as Pradoshaja condition, but with often dominance of Vata and Kapha. Initial doshas are Mutra, Rasa, Udaka, Sweda, Rakta, Sira, but later on all dhatus and updhatus may get involved. Clinical conditions related to Snayu, Mamsa, Asti and Shukra are often observed. In Srotas, initially Mutravaha, Udakvaha, Svedvaha, Rasvaha, Raktvaha are involved, but as disease advances, it becomes multi-Srotas, or in simple word, multi-system illness. Now here again, what type of Srotodushti and Mutravaha Srotas? So usually when there is any talk related to Srotodushti, we often consider 4 types of Srotodushti. Pati Pravarti Samgova, Vimargamnam, Shira Granthi, etc. But remember, there it is clearly mentioned, Sotsam Dushti Lakshanam. These are the clinical manifestation of Srotodushti, but not the Srotodushti itself. So what kind of Srotodushti? So this also, as I mentioned earlier, that I interpret classical description in my own way. So in the same chapter related to Srotas in Vimanisthan, there is a wonderful sentence which has given me a wonderful clue related to Srotodushti. Tesham sarvesham ev vata pitta sleshmana pradushta dushyotaro bhavanti dosh svabhavaditi. Here this word dosh svabhavaditi often translated as nature of the disease. We often consider that dosh svabhav means this is nature of dosha to vitiate other body components. But here I interpret this word in one other way also. Swabhav means one's own attributes. That means dosh swabhav means doshas with their attributes. So dushyas or srotas are vitiated by the attributes of the doshas. That means the properties, the gunas of the dosha. So here what we observe that in Mutravaha Srotas, Kharatva, Gaurav, Roksha, Kaఠિન્ય. These gunas are often observed and they cause the vitiation or dushti in the Mutravaha Srotas. Just to give you some classical hint also, if we see the Samprapti of Prameya, there they have mentioned one phrase that Mutravahani Srotansi Guru Mukhini Asadhya. That means in Prameya, the Guru property, Gaurav of Kapha is causing Gurutva in the Mutravaha Srotas. And this, if we further this Samprapti, then we can also understand that why diabetic patients develop nephropathy. Because this Gurutva in Mutravaha Srotas, which is described in Prameya, is not limited up to Madhumaya only, but when it advances, then it causes more defects. In Prameya, it is just functional defect. But when it advances and becomes structural damage, then it becomes diabetic nephropathy. So, when we say which type of Srotodushti, so there is Kharatva, Gaurav, Kaఠિન્ય and Roksha in Mutravaha Srotas. Generally, Agni is Manda at every level and mostly Mal Sanchayatma Kama is present. If we say the Udbhav Sthan, then Pakva Shayot Vyadhi is this. Initially, Madhyam Rog Marga is responsible, but later all 3 Margas get involved and that increase its incurability. Now we come to principle of management. So whatever we have learned in etiopathogenesis, on that basis we planned our management strategy. So first, which is always common strategy in all the diseases, is Nidan Parivarjanam. And in this, we have also considered Nidanarthaka Roga and we have to treat the underlying disease. Then we have also to consider Vyadhi Adhisthana. That means Vyadhi Adhisthana is kidney is here. And we have to try to repair whatever damage is there in the kidneys. Then we have to establish Sroto Prakriti, mainly of Mutravaha, Udakvaha, and Svedvaha. How we practically can do this? So by supporting the excretory functions, maintaining the fluid and electrolytes. Now as we have seen the involvement of the dhatus, updhatus, so we have also keep dhatu portion in our planning, particularly of rasa, rakta, mamsa and asti. And this we have to do by correction of anemia, correction of myopathy and neuropathies, and also by correcting the osteodystrophy. Then also we have to keep in mind the management of associated problems such as cardiovascular disorders, hypertension, etc. And last but not least, in such illnesses, rather I will say that in all diseases, we have not to forget Sattva and Devyapasya. I will explain that how we do this. So Nidan Parivarjanam, as I have told that whatever Nidana we find in these patients, we have to suggest patient to avoid them. Same time we have to treat the underlying disease. For example, if patient is suffering with polycystic kidney, then we have to manage this with proper treatment of that. In our hospital, we treat them with Kanchnar, Guglu and Varnadikwad. If patient has hypertension as underlying disease, then we have to treat that. And if patient has, for example, diabetes, Madhumeha, then we have to keep Madhumeha in control in whatever means possible. To repair Vyadhi Adhishtan, that is kidney, we have to use rasayanas which are acting particularly on Mutravaha Srota. We use mainly Varuna, Punarnava, Gokshura, and our one special plant which is not very commonly used in Ayurvedic hospitals is Bhumi Amalki. We found this as wonder drug for several conditions, particularly when they are associated with diabetes. In diabetic neuropathy or diabetic nephropathy, Bhumi Amalki has wonderful results. And then other rasayanas, common rasayanas such as Chavanprasha Leha, compound of Shilajatu and Guglu, such as Jivit Prada or Shilajatwadi Vati. Then to establish Sroto Prakriti of Mutravaha, Udakvaha, Svedavaha Srotas, as I mentioned that we have to support excretory functions and maintenance of fluid and electrolytes. Here as I also mentioned the role of Pakwashaya in this condition. We use Nirva Basti with Punarnavadikwad. And this we do not use as limited that how many Bastis, as much as patient can take. When patient is in our hospital, as indoor patient, we give it every day. And when patient feels some weakness, then we give Anvasana Basti with Gokshuradi Telam. This is the preparation which we have designed, in which we process sesame oil with all the plants. Those are considered as rasayanas for Mutravaha Srotas. And Punarnava in any form, 3 to 5 grams twice. Fluid intake, we have to regulate according to the urine output. We have not to give much fluid because it will again put burden on the nephrons, but same time we have also considered that there should not be any dehydration. Now here about Basti. If we follow the classical instructions and if we insert the nozzle only 3 or 4 fingers, then it will be here in this area. And when Basti material will reach in this area, this is very sensitive part of rectum and it will immediately cause urge of defecation. And patient will not be able to hold the Basti for even 1 minute. And in this planning, it is necessary that Basti should be held for minimum 20 minutes. Or if patient can hold more, then it will be more beneficial. So our suggestion is this, that in spite of using these hard material nozzles, better to use soft catheters and introduce the Basti as deep as possible so that patient can hold it for longer period. And therefore in our institute we have developed these Basti Putak, which are disposable, single use, and very conveniently we can use them for giving Basti. For Soto Prakriti, we have to consider, as I mentioned, status of main electrolytes. If patient has hypernatremia, then we have to give him salt-free diet. And if some salt we have to give, then we have to prefer Sendhava. If patient is suffering with hyperkalemia, then we have to avoid fruits and vegetables. Vegetables are necessary, so what we do, that after boiling the vegetable, we squeeze the water so that maximum potassium portions is expelled out. And if patient has hypokalemia, because potassium is very sensitive electrolyte, we have to consider this very much. So if there is hypokalemia, we ask the patient to take more fruits, particularly if he can manage coconut water, then we encourage him to take it. For anemias, Chyawanprash itself is very useful preparation. Other iron preparations, whatever is available in your hospital, can be used. Here, one important thing we have to remember, that is role of erythropoietin. When kidney is not able, it is also possible that the excretory function only is deteriorated. Endocrinal function is not deteriorated. In that case, there will not be any deficiency of erythropoietin. But if there is deficiency of erythropoietin, then you have to supplement it. Now, if we are not allowed to give erythropoietin, then what are the alternatives? So we also explored some possibilities. This is fruit of Isnohi. This is known as prickly pear. Because of their red color, in folk medicine they are used to promote Rakta Dhatu. Surprisingly, they do not contain any iron. But nature's indication with this red color gives us hint to use them in promoting Rakta Dhatu. And in our some studies we found this acting just like erythropoietin. So we use fresh juice or dried pulp of these fruits. Another alternative on which we are also working is beetroots. For managing myopathy and neuropathy, we have very effective measures, which I can say they are not in conventional medicine. That is Abhyanga with water reducing oils. Here particularly we prefer Baladi Telam or any oil in which Bala has big proportion. For osteodystrophy, we use Shankh Bhasma and compounds of Mukta and Pravala. Here these substances, on one hand they are good source of natural calcium. Same time there is one more advantage. Though Pravala is banned, so at least Mukta we can use. And one additional advantage is this, that in these patients there is always some hyperacidity. So these compounds also help in managing that, and Mukta is also antidepressant. And these patients also suffer with depression, and in that also Mukta helps. For hypertension, we use Tripla Guglu together with Arjuna Churna. If there is no response, then we give Sarpagandha in 500 milligram to 1 gram dose. And even if it is not managed, then with the advice of conventional physician, we continue or aid any modern antihypertensive drug. For symptomatic treatment, we have very effective measures. Here again, more effective than conventional methods. For nausea, for vomiting, for hiccup, very ideal is Mayur Picha Bhasma. And we are also using fresh fant or juice of Amr and Jambu Pallav. They are also very effective. As earlier I mentioned, Sattva Vijaya and Devyapasya. Being Ayurvedic physicians, we have not to ignore them. For Devyapasya, it is not necessary that we have to adopt the classical ways which are described as mantra, mani, bali, upvas, etc. But because in India there are several faiths. Even if patient is Hindu, he is following several sects. So we ask the patient that whatever faith he has, according to that, he has to intensify his prayers or his ritual activity. Sorry, my time is coming very close, but topic is very big, so please permit me some more minutes. Devale Saab, Vasis Saab, scheduled time.
Yes, sir, please continue, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now, Sattva Vijaya. First, Sattva Vijaya happens automatically. We are very lucky in this aspect. We are Ayurvedic persons. What is Sattva Vijaya? Sattva Vijaya means to restrain mind from its harmful objects. And in this context, harmful object is negative thinking in the patient, which is fed by conventional nephrologists or conventional physicians that you need dialysis. If dialysis will not work, then you will need transplant, and there is no surety of that. And these all give a negative feeling in patient that he is close to die. And then he develops worries about his family, his job, his business, etc. What happens that when he comes to Ayurvedic hospital, he is sitting in waiting lounge. There are several other patients having similar condition. Indian patients, they never remain silent. They talk to each other. And when the other patients say that we have also kidney disease, and since 6 months or 5 months we are in treatment here, doctors have told that we have to go for dialysis, but we are living without dialysis. Doctors told us to go for transplant, but we did not need yet. So get first positive input from patients, other patients. And when he comes to you, and you also assure him that yes, disease is serious, but with efforts, we can reduce its severity. We can reduce need of dialysis. We can postpone need of transplant. Then he becomes more assured and he develops more positive thinking. So this is Sattva Vijaya in this context. Now, practically what type of treatment protocol we adopt in our hospital? Shodhana. Recently, this we have added in our protocol recently. Earlier we did not do this, but now because we are also advancing and adopting several newer treatment plans, newer drugs, newer medicaments, so to see the more and more possibility. So if patient has mild form of disease, that means if creatinine is lesser than 3 mg/%, then we give mild Virechana after Snehana with Gokshuradi Ghrata. After this, now this is common protocol in every patient, that every day we give Nari Svedana in the loin regions once in the morning, followed by Nirva Basti with Punarnavadi Quad. Every day before lunch, as I mentioned, Basti must be retained not less than 20 minutes. Here, If there is confirmed autoimmune factor, then first we give Vardhaman Pipli, followed by mild Virechana, and then this same protocol. Now Shamana treatment, which is common in every patient. Gokshuradi Gugulu, 1 gram 3 times a day. Ingredients you all know. Varnadi Quad, this is actually Varnadi Gan Quad from Susuta Samhita. It is not Varnadi Quad of Sharandhar Samhita. This we give 40 milliliter twice a day. Rasayan Churna, which is composition of Gokshur, Amalki and Guruchi, 3 grams 3 times a day. Then this is one our own preparation, Swadhanshta Rasayan. In this we give 7 bhavanas of Gokshur decoction to Gokshur powder. So this Swadhanshta Rasayan we give 1 gram 3 times a day. Bhumi Amalki Churna, as I mentioned, its importance, 3 grams 3 times a day after food with water. Shila Jatwari Vati, 750 milligram 3 times with water. In some patients, we give Shilajit alone also in big dosage, minimum 5 grams twice in stubborn cases. If necessary, antihypertensive and or hypoglycemic or insulin are to be continued in same or modified dosage with the expert advice. The food which we give to this patient in breakfast, in our hospital we do not give any breakfast to any patient. In place of breakfast, to every patient we give Chyawanprash Avalaya, about 20 grams with 300 milliliter of cow's milk. In lunch, these are our usual. There may be some alterations, modifications according to availability, but these are usual food items. And this we recommend patient to continue at home also. Boiled mung bean soup, boiled vegetables, rice, fresh and mild spices. In supper, mung bean soup, rice, khichdi, boiled vegetables with mild to moderate spices. Sometimes patients say that afternoon he feels hungry. So we, according to status of his Agni, we may recommend him some fruits like papaya, grapes, sweet apple, figs, dates, pop rice. And if there is no other contraindication, he can consume 100 milliliter more milk other than the milk which we have given in breakfast. For apatya, we are very strict. We say the patient not to take any other flour item like wheat, millet and corn, no bakery item, no oil except sesame oil, no junk food, no fermented items, no salts, no item with sour taste, no chili, no deep fried items, no milk products except ghee and cow's milk. Not to indulge in excessive physical and mental stress, avoid daytime sleep and night vigils. Now, evidence. Everybody asks that do you have some evidence about your work? So we have done some studies. We have several forms of studies with our data. So in 2015-16, we have chosen 417 patients irrespective of their basic core. Why only 417 patients? Because these patients were not on dialysis. Again, out of them, we have again chosen 275 patients. Those were treated for 1 month without any interruption. And then changes observed after 1 month for short-term effect of the treatment. And in these 63 patients, we have chosen those who have continued outdoor treatment without any lapse for next 5 months. That means total 6 months to see the long-term effect. Then there is another question raised by conventional scientists, and that is, do you have any control study? Sorry, we cannot do any control study in such serious illnesses. When patient comes to us, we expect Ayurvedic treatment. So we cannot put patient in any other category. So we have designed our own treatment, and with the grace of God, our design was very much accepted by some very big medical scientists also. In this design, what we have done, that we have chosen 53 patients who had their earlier records of their status 6 months before starting Ayurvedic treatment, and continued our treatment for next 5 months, next 6 months without any interruption. And so we have 3 data in here. First, when patient was on conventional treatment before 6 months before, when he came to us. When he came to us, that is, we have given GFR 0. 6 months before, what was his GFR? -6. And after 6 months of our treatment, +6 GFR. And with this, we have done our statistical calculation, and the observations were quite encouraging. So certain things I escape here, like distribution of patients according to gender, etc., and according to diseases. Now I just come to short-term observation, that after 1 month treatment, how was the result? So if we see the GFR, initially it was 13.3. After 1 month, it became 14.4 in short-term effect. Here, because of limitation of time, I just consider only GFR, not other values, though we have all other values also. Also, in the symptoms, there is marked change, and this is, see, here we cannot say that, oh, symptomatology, because we can mention that yes, he is feeling good, but no. We have also observed these changes in symptoms very carefully, and this is also reason patient does not consider creatinine or GFR. For him, his own feeling is important, and when he feels good in his symptoms, then he is encouraged to continue the treatment. If he does not feel any change in the symptoms, then even if his GFR is increasing or creatinine is reducing, he will not take your treatment. So there is also marked improvement in the symptoms. Also, urine output is improved. Then, as we see, these 63 patients are long-term observation. In symptoms also, after 6 months, there is again more change. After 1 month, there was change, but after 6 months, more change. And if we see GFR, it comes now. See, in the beginning, it was 13. After 1 month, 15.4. And after 6 months, it became 17.8. According to the gradation system, below 15 is considered as stage 5, ESRD. And above 15, it is considered stage 4. So at least we reduce the severity of the illness that we pulled them from 5th stage to 4th stage back. Of course, there is further development we observed, but it is only for this 6 months. Now, this study, which is very important, in which we compared -6 months plus 6 months with the 0 GFR. Here you see, I just explained GFR only. 6 months before, when patient was whatever treatment, usually conventional treatment, his GFR was 20.58. When he came to us, it was reduced to 11.95. That means when he was on conventional treatment, his condition was deteriorated. But when he took Ayurvedic treatment for next 6 months, his condition again improved and it became 17.01. That means when he was on conventional treatment, his condition was deteriorating, but when he took Ayurvedic treatment, his condition again improved. So here we applied T-test, which is very common, but we also applied ANOVA. And here with 95% confidence interval, you can see that when he came to us at 11.36, earlier it was 19.96. This was ANOVA test, so numbers are different. And after this deterioration, I cannot move the stylus properly. So see, in the beginning, his eGFR was 19.96, that means around 20, which deteriorated to 11.36. And with Ayurvedic treatment, again, it is improved to 15.98. In creatinine also, it is deteriorated and then improved again. In hemoglobin also. And if we do the 3D surface plotting also, it also shows that with 6 months treatment, there is marked improvement in eGFR. Now, what may be the possible modes of action? This is just my hypothesis. First, very important, mental positivity. In Ayurveda, we say in Charak Samhita, Sutra Sthan 25th chapter, it is mentioned, Vishada Vyadhi Vardhananam. So when patient has negative thinking, the severity of disease will increase. But when he will have positivity, there regress the disease process. So this also helps in deceleration process of disease. Then there is also possibility of reversal of pathology in mildly affected nephrons. Adaptation. This is also possible that the healthy nephrons and even diseased nephrons, they try to adapt with this situation. Then compensation. Here we have to apply the principle of holism in Ayurveda. Holism is not just only to consider the unity of soul, mind and body, but in my opinion, holism in Ayurveda applied to every cell, whole body and whole cosmos. In my opinion, as we see that Purusha, a living entity, is miniature of whole cosmos, whole universe. Similarly, I consider that every body cell is representative of whole body itself. So every body cell has capacity to take over work of other cells if it is given some indication. So this compensation can be done by intact nephrons, that other nephrons take this responsibility, little bit more burden. Now remember here, as I mentioned in the earlier slides, that if burden on nephrons is there, then they will also be damaged. But here, because we give rasayanas, so they give strength to the nephrons to bear this excessive burden. The compensation can be also from other organs. And to explain this, I use one example. This example, if I give in Hindi language, then it will be more interesting. Can I give? Or there are more speakers only knowing English?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, not speakers, participants. Okay, I try in English. So this is Indian family. Husband, wife, children. I am talking about Indian family, not American or German or any other country's family. Here this is usual that husband have job, earn money, and wife takes care of family, takes care of household activities, cooking, maintaining the home, etc. Now suppose wife became ill. Now what will happen? Who will cook? Will they starve? No. Now husband will try to do something. He will ask the children that, okay, see, mama is ill. We should do something funny. You do this, you do this, you do this. One child will clean the potatoes, another child will clean the cucumber, another child will clean the rice, another child will clean the dal, and they will have some fun in it. And whatever ways they will try to cook something. It will not be as delicious as wife was doing, but they could do to survive. Now 2-3 days passed. Indian neighbors are again wonderful neighbors. If they know that Mrs. Sharma is ill and Sharma family has crisis, they will knock the door. Sharma ji, what type of neighbor you are? If Mrs. Sharma is ill, why did not you tell us? Now, no self-management. Every day, the lunch and supper will come from our kitchen till Mrs. Sharma is totally healthy. Now neighbors will bring food for lunch and supper every day till Mrs. Sharma is completely healthy. Same thing happens here. First, nephrons try to maintain this status. When other organs also know that now kidney is our sisters, our brothers, kidneys are ill, they will also try to compensate. And this is what we have to do. That we have to promote this tendency of other organs to compensate. And this we do through promoting the activities of colon, promoting the activities of liver, promoting the activities of other organs. See, every organ has some partial possibility to compensate other organs. And this is holism in my sense of Ayurveda. Also, as I mentioned, the importance of Srotodushti, with the treatment of Ayurveda, we can reduce or remove Kharatva, Gaurav, Loksha and Kathinya from the Srotas, because the medicines which we use here, they all are counteracting Kharatva, Gaurav, Loksha and Kathinya. So this is how, hypothetically, I cannot say I have some scientific clue. I have not done any biopsy studies, any histological studies, but this is my presumption that with Ayurvedic treatment, these are the possibilities. These are our some publications, and this is the most important and the latest one, which you can find on internet also, in Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. This is its website, and it was published in May 2020. Now, in present time, we are also studying on dialysis dependent patients. The data which I have shown you in these studies were on non-dialysis dependent patients. Now we are also doing studies on dialysis dependent patients, and the results are very good. Earlier we were concentrating on the patients those who are not taking dialysis, but now we are welcoming every patient. So in these patients, roughly we observed that we reduce their need of dialysis very significantly. Even there are several patients those are living without dialysis also, and surprisingly, in some patients their creatinine level and their eGFR is now reaching to their normal values without any dialysis. So this is some few small things which we could do in our institute with our limited resources. We do not have big research laboratory facilities, etc. And with this, I conclude my lecture. I wish you a very healthy life with Prasanna Atmendri Manas.